Okay, this is not a quiz. It says quiz. It's not. Okay. Greater than or less than. So if you remember that sheet, when you're solving greater than or less than inequalities, you want to make a number line. 0 in the middle. Now you want to, first off, make sure your x is covered. So we need a 1 in front of that. No parentheses. That's not a problem. There can only be one single x, and there is right there. So I can dot it and circle it, and that's my solo x. Now, is that positive or negative? It's positive, so we don't want to change the sign. We want to have the sign go the same way right there. Okay, outside the circle, we have a -5, so we're going to add 5, add 5. Okay, so what do I have? I have 1 dot x. I have the sign. Then -2 plus 5 equals 3. It's not 7 because you started at -2. So, okay, now I can divide by my multiplying number, which is 1. And I have x, the sign, and 3 divided by 1 is 3. Okay. So our critical value is 3, so we're going to circle that and the lines under it, so we want to fill it in. And the nose goes this way, so that makes it less than, so the arrow runs that way because that's less than sign. So x can be any number. It can be 3 or any number less than 3. It's allowed to be 3, anything less than 3. It is not allowed to be any number in this direction. Okay, number 2. -3x is greater than 9. Okay, so draw that. Okay, make sure your x has a number connected to it. It has a -3 connected to it, so that's good. No parentheses. We don't really have any. There can only be a single solo x, and there is. And so now let's dot it and circle it and decide if the sign's going to have to change its direction. Now that's a negative, so you bet it's going to have to change its direction because the x term's negative. There's a negative with that x, so it goes like this, turns around. Okay, oops, sorry. Okay, now there's no adding or subtracting that I need to do, okay, because this is the side the x is on. There's nothing outside the dot number, so I don't need to add or subtract. So I just divide both sides by -3. So I have x, and then the sign flip because I'm dividing by a negative, and x is less than -3. Okay, so -3 is your critical number. Circle it, but you're not going to fill it in, okay? And the nose goes this way. Okay, number 3. Now, if I see a fraction, I'm going to want a fraction on the other side to match, okay? Now, we're going to cross multiply and divide, but I have to, before I do that, I need to decide if my sign's going to have to switch. So there's a negative under the x, okay? The number that's dividing the x is a negative, okay? So I'm going to be multiplying by a negative, so therefore the sign needs to change. Okay, so I cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to be taking -2 times -6 and dividing that by 1. The answer is 12. I'll just show you how. Okay, 12. Okay, so I have x on this side still, but now over here we have the number 12. Okay, so 12 is my number. Circle the line. Needs to be filled in, and nose goes this way, and there we have it. Okay, number 4, 3x plus 5 is greater than or equal to 20. Number line. Now spot your x. Is there any parentheses? Is the x covered? Yep, by a 3. There's no parentheses. So make sure we have just a solo x. I do, so I'm going to dot it and circle it. And outside of that circle, I have an addition of 5. So I need to subtract 5. Subtract 5. and I have 3 dot x, means 3 times x, and then the sign, greater than or equal to, and 20 minus 5 is 15. Okay, now I divide both sides by, oh yeah, by the way, the dotted number's positive, okay? That 3 is positive, so the sign is not going to change. It's going to be the same direction because we had a positive. Okay, so I minus 5 then. Now I'm at 3x and 15, so 3 times what's 15? Well, I can divide both sides by 3. And I have x, the sign, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. So x is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so my critical value is 5, so I circle. The line is under there, so we want to fill it in. That means the solution can be equal to 5, and it can be anything greater than 5. So it could be 6, 7, 8, all the way in that direction. Okay, number 5, by the way, make that 8 plus, and then put a negative on the 8. Sorry about that. Okay, so we make our number line. My x's, there's 2 of them now. Are they both covered with coefficients, numbers in the front? Yeah, negative 8 on the x and then a 4 on that x. So we know what they have is numbers in front, coefficients. No parentheses in that problem. But now I run into a problem, the fact that there are 2 x's. Well, there has to be a solo x. So I have to decide, are these on the opposite side or are they on the same side? Well, I think they're on opposite sides. Okay, so if they're on opposite sides, we need to switch the one on the right to its opposite. So it's positive 4, so we'd go negative 4x. You wouldn't plus 4x because 4 plus 4 would be 8, okay? But if I take 4 minus 4, that would be 0. And then I'll need to minus 4 from the negative 8. Okay, so I have 7 plus, then I take negative 8 minus 4, and that's negative 12. So negative 12x, and then the sign, and then I have the negative 17. Now that I have a solo x, I'm going to dot it and circle it, and right after I do that, I need to decide if that sign's going to have to change. Well, that x is negative. There's a negative with it multiplying that x, so the sign's going to change the direction because that means eventually I'm going to have to divide both sides by a negative. Okay, now outside of that, we have a 7, okay? We need to get rid of that 7 through adding or subtracting. Now, it is positive 7, so we would want to subtract 7 because that would be 0. And then I subtract 7 from negative 17. So I have negative 12 dot x, the sign, negative 17 minus 7 is negative 24. Okay, now it is time to divide. So I have x, and we flip the sign because I'm dividing by a negative, and negative 24 divided by negative 12 is positive 2. Okay, so my critical value is 2. Circle the lines there, so fill it in. And it would go this direction here. Okay, my next problem. 2 is less than 6x minus 10, which is less than 20. So since there's 2 signs circled, there's going to be 2 numbers we have to find. Find the 2 numbers x is between. What range does it fall into? Okay, so the number line's been drawn. My x is a 6x. It's the only one I have. There are no parentheses. And that's the only x I have, so I'm good there. So I want to dot and circle that. But it's positive. So there are 2 signs, okay? So they will not be changing because the 6 is positive, so they'll be going the same way. Okay, now I want to cover these up, the 2 outside numbers. Okay, look in the middle of the 2 sides. What do you have outside that circle? You have a minus 10. So you need to add 10 in the middle. You get a plus 10 to that. So that gets rid of the 10. Now, if you plus 10 in the middle, you have to plus 10 to your outsides. It's like you have three sides, okay? The left, the middle, and the right. So I plus 10 in the middle, but then I have to plus 10 to the 12, and I have to plus 10 to the 20. So 2 plus 10 is 12, and then I have my sign, and then 6 dot x, then I have my sign, and 20 plus 10 is 30. Okay, now the opposite of multiplied by 6 would be to divide by 6. So those can cancel. But then, so I did it in the middle, and now I have to do it to that number and that number. It's like having three sides. Okay, 12 divided by 6 is 2. Then I have the x in the middle, and then 30 divided by 6 is 5. Okay, so my two numbers are 2 and 5. They'll both be over here, actually, because they're both positive. Okay, we would not fill in either circle because there's no bar there. We just connect them. Okay, graph the inequality. Now with graphing, both of these have x and y, but we're going to graph them differently because where they're at are different. So here's my sign. The y and the x are on opposite sides, okay, the y being all by itself. So if they're on opposite sides, I would like to use the slope and y-intercept method of graphing. So the slope is whatever's in front of my x. In this case, it's -1/2. And the y-intercept is +7. Okay. So I graph the y-intercept first. That's just up the y-axis. There's my y. So I go up 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and the slope, remember, I go from the first point I made. So from first. So the top number tells me if I have to go up or down. I'll be going down, and then I'll be going to the right. So I go down 1 and right 2, and then I can make my line. Okay. So all those x, y points on the line are what makes it equal, but we have a less than, so I have to do my true or false test. So my testing point is best if it's 0 and 0. Okay. So let's get rid of so that means I need to put 0 in place of the x and 0 in place of the y. So let's get rid of the y, and that's 0. Now before I just scribble out the x, I'm going to want to put it into parentheses and then scribble it out and put 0. So now I have only numbers in there to deal with. So I have the 0, I have the sign, and then I have -1/2 parentheses 0 plus 7. Now some of you guys with those big calculators are wondering, well, how the heck do I do that on the calculator? Anything times 0 is 0, dude. Okay, anything times 0 is 0. Because we have 0, the sign, but I have to add 7 then, so it'd be 7. Okay, I don't care if it's a fraction. If you times a fraction by 0, it's still 0, but you're adding 7, so that equals 7. Okay, now 0 is my smaller number, so my smaller number's there, and the sign needs to point its nose towards a smaller number, and it does. Okay, so that is true. So I put a T above that point because that's where the 0, 0 is at. So any point over there is true. Now I cross over the line. Any point there is false. Okay, then number 8, 3x minus 6y is greater than or equal to 24. Now this time the x and the y are on the same side, not on opposites. Okay, so they're on the same side. So if they're on the same side, we want to make our 0 and 0. Find the x and y intercepts. So I need to copy that down twice. 3x minus 6y, and then just a regular equals 24. And then 3x minus 6y equals 24. So x is 0. We can eliminate that. and then I dot my y and I divide by the -6, because -6 times y equals 24. So I divide 24 by -6, and that's -4. And here the y is 0, so we can eliminate the 6y. So 3 times x equals 24, so I need to divide both sides by 3. And 24 divided by 3 is 8. Okay, so this is the x and this is the y. So the x is left or right, but 0 means I stay. I don't go either. And the 8, it's positive, so we go to the right. Okay. Now the y is up or down. Remember, the y is up or down. So the 4 is negative, so it would be down. And the x is neither, so that means stay. So I stay 4 and go down. Stay and go down 4. And then the 8, 0, I go right 8 and stay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now I have 2 points. Any 2 points can form a line. Whoops, that's like the worst line ever. Okay, now I have to decide my true-false sides, because I have the equal part. I need the true or false part. Okay, so x equals 0 and y equals 0. Okay, so I have 3. And by the way, let's parenthesize the x and put a 0 under it. And the y would also get parenthesized, and I put a 0 in front of it. So what do I have? I have 3, parentheses 0, minus 6, parentheses 0. And then the sign, and then 24. Okay, so 3 times 0 is 0, 6 times 0 is 0, so the whole side, 0 plus 0 is 0, or 0 minus 0, it's still 0. And then I have the sign, and then 24. Okay, now 0 is a smaller one, so the nose should be pointing towards the smaller one. And on this one, it's not, so that's false. So I put F here and T here.